Hello, everyone. Today we are going to talk about property editors and how they work in Lightning Web Components. And with me is Piyush. He is an extremely talented Salesforce consultant. Piyush, why don't you introduce yourself a bit before we go ahead?
Sure. Thank you so much for the great introduction, Abhinav. Hello, everyone. I am Piyush Charasia, and I work as Senior Salesforce Consultant at Concrete.
Perfect. So, Piyush, can you give me a gist like what we are going to talk about? We are going to primarily talk about web components, LWCs, or something else?
So it's basically going to be a way of implementing the design attribute into our LWC. So those who are familiar with design attribute, so basically it allows the developer or the use or the end user to set some prerequisites of your component or the configuration for your component. So we are going to customize that with using custom LWC component.
Okay. And design attributes are the one which show up when you drag drop your component in the
Correct.
builders
That's
like
correct.
app builder or community page builders.
Correct.
Okay. So we will see primarily a way to make most out of these design attributes, how you can make your component maybe more functional for end user. Is that the right way to put it, Piyush?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead. Let's move with the presentation.
Okay. So hello everyone. The topic for the today's video is enhance how we can enhance the flexibility using custom property editors in LWC, and they are available for ScreenFlow and community. So let's see what's in the agenda. We'll be having some introduction. We'll be having how many ways we can implement the design attributes, and most importantly, a live demo. So introduction. So basically custom property editor is just another LWC component for your main LWC component. That's it. And as the definition says, custom property editors allows developer to create custom UI component for modifying components property in Lightning Web Component. It supports various input types. So these are the basic benefits of using custom property editors because it supports various input types, validations, and it also enhances the interaction to meet the diverse need of a business. Let's see how many ways we have to implement the property editors. So the general way is using simple design attributes which supports out of the box data types like string, integer, boolean, etc. And the second way that we have is using an apex class as a reference for the design attribute. But we have to make sure that whenever we use an apex class, it should extend the properties from the visual editor namespace. The third thing and the key point for the video is a separate setting component for our main LWC component. And what that separate setting component will do, it will expand the design attribute to support multiple feature together, which can further dependent on each other. So without wasting further time, let's dive into the demo. So here I am on my account record detail page. I have a component created for simple design attribute. Before that, I would like to give one more thing. Like we'll be going with a simple design attribute demo. We'll be having an Apex type design attribute demo. We'll be having a separate setting component in the demo. So if we talk about the simple design attribute, so I have created a component called simple design attribute. So let's drop it on the UI. So the moment I drop the component on the UI, you can see it came up with a couple of input properties where the name is a type of string, is adult is a type of boolean, age is a type of integer, and preference is a type of single select pick list. You can see. Let's put some value in each one of the inputs. So when I remove the focus from this particular input field, you can see my values are being shared with my main LWC component. Same for is adult and same for the age and same for the preferences. So let's see how we are achieving this using simple design attributes. So for that, I have created a component called simple design attributes. Please ignore the HTML and JS file for now because The design attributes only works in your meta file. Um, Here we have some targets. On whatever page you would like to drop your component, you can specify those targets over here. I have a beautiful master label for my LWC component that you just saw here, simple design attributes. If we want to display some properties or design attributes to be editable by user, we have to specify some target configs that should come under the target config. And you can have multiple target config into a single target configs. And in the targets, you can specify all your target names. So you can have different set of properties for record page. You can have different set of properties for app page, and similar for the home page. So let's say if you want to display only two properties for the record page, what you can do, you can just add another target config. You can remove this lightning record page from here. You can add another target into the next target config and copy those two properties into the second target config. So these are the four property that you just saw over here. Name is adult, age, and preference. So let's go one by one. So for the name property, what we have a property called label, we have a property called name, we have a property called type. And I already told that the name is a type of string, is adult is a boolean, age is an integer, and preference is a single select pick list. So we have all the specific types, string, boolean, integer. But for the preference, we have the similar type string because it also has a property called data source. So it is strong enough to convert whatever written in this particular string, whether it is a single select pick list or whether it is a apex reference. One thing to notice here is whenever you specify a name with any string, you should have the similar name as your public properties. If you don't do that, it won't allow you to deploy your component into your org. So I have all four public properties: name is adult, age, and pref. And you can see the same name is specified in the name tag, name property as well. Name is adult, age, and preference. So when you do data source separated by comma, it will treat the value as a single select pick list. And whenever you select one value, it will treat that value as a string. In the HTML file, we have nothing. We are just displaying the user selection when they are selecting anything while being on the edit page. So this is how a simple design attribute looks like and works. Now let's talk about the second type of design attribute, which is using an apex class to get a set of result from apex. For that, I have created another LWC component called apex design attribute. So let's drop it on the UI. So the moment I drop the UI, you can see we have two pick lists popped up. One is displaying all the Salesforce object with the by default object account selected. One is displaying all the account related field with the by default ID selected. And even you can change anything and it will be reflected to your main LWC component the moment you switch, the moment you click. And similar for the record IDs as well. So let's see how we are achieving this. I have an LWC component created with the name apex type design attribute. Again, please ignore the HTML and JS file because the design attribute only works in the meta file. Similar as the previous component, we have some targets. We have a master label that you saw on the edit page here. And a thing to notice in the target configs, basically the target configs are very similar to the previous one, but it has only one difference from the previous single select pick list is this. So data source can either uh, get a value separated by comma, or it can also get a value that could be a reference to your apex class. But one thing to notice here is whenever you want to access some properties from your apex class, you should extend the properties from the visual editor namespace. Otherwise, it won't allow you to specify your apex reference over here. Now, we should have these two apex class created at least. Let's see what's in all two of the Apex classes. So when I open the object controller, you can see we are extending the properties from the dynamic picklist abstract class, and it comes under the visual editor namespace. So when we extend this dynamic picklist, it comes up with two methods. One is get default value. As the name says, whatever value we would like to display on the UI. In my case, I was displaying account. So I have selected account by default, and it returns one data row at a time. And on the get values, we have to return this dynamic pick list rows, which is consisting of a list of data rows. So what I'm doing, I'm just fetching all the Salesforce object, preparing a data row at a time, and returning that particular object list, dynamic pick list rows, so that I can have a structure kind of thing right over here, a single select pick list basically. Yep. The second thing that we have is fields controller. So let's see what's in the fields controller. In the fields controller, we also have the visual editor namespace class dynamic picklist extended. We have another class called design time page context. So it is similar to the Visual Force standard controller. It returns two things. One is current entity name, and second one is page context. And these two methods are similar to the previous class. Get default value, whatever default value you would like to display, you can return that. And the get values, you can return any set of results from here. You can specify your custom logic here, but the thing to notice here is you need to just prepare this visual editor data row and put it into the dynamic picklist row. And this is how you can get all the fields or whatever data you would like to display right over here. Now, one more thing to notice here is when I'm switching to another component, or when I'm clicking on another component and coming back to my component, my values are being retained. I'm not losing them unless I hit the refresh button. Similar for the Apex type as well, I'm not losing any of the values. So the drawback of using both type of design attributes are you cannot have dependencies like similar case. What an end user would think, okay, using select object, I can select my object. Using select field, I can select all the fields from the selected object. You can't do this using a standard design attribute. The second thing, you cannot customize the UI. So whatever out of the box UI you have to use that only. You cannot have more data types. Next, you have to use one Apex class for one property. So if you want, like let's say if you have five kind of select object, you have to use five Apex class, even though you can use a single Apex class as well, but it depends on the like selection. Or let's say if you want to select an object, then select a field, then select a field set, then select all the text area fields and something like that. So for each and every single select picklist, you need to use a separate Apex class that I just used over here. So it was not allowed to use a single Apex class for multiple references. And even though it don't work with the previous selection, like let's say I'm selecting any object and I would like to get this selected object into my Apex, I can't do that. So let's overcome with this issues. Let's try creating a new flow. As I already told, we have now the third point is a separate setting component for the main LWC components. So we are going to create an flow where we will see how we can achieve this, or how we can overcome these issues with the custom property editors. So let's quickly create a screen flow and drop our new component. Sorry. Let's add a screen, and for the screen flow design attribute, I have created this screen flow design attribute component. So the moment I drop the component on the UI, you can see it came up with a selectable object combo box. So the moment I select any object, it will refresh things and it will bring all the fields from the selected object. One thing to notice here is it is not taking a different section to display the properties. It is taking the section that usually a standard component takes for the setting pane. Even though if you switch back your component and back on your own component, you can see the values are being retained. Even though it is a custom component, but still we are able to retain our values. You can change anything, and the moment you switch the object, it will refreshing the field and you can see all the fields from the selected object. Now let's see how we are achieving this. So let's close both of them. So as I already told, for each and every custom property editor, we should have a main component and a setting component. So for that purpose, I have created a main component called screen flow design attribute, from which I'll be accessing my screen flow design attribute setting component. So again, we have to go to the meta file of the main component and how we are um, enabling this target config to access our custom LWC component as a property. So the targets are similar. If we would like to display it on the flow, we have to specify this lightning flow screen target. We have a master label called screen flow design attribute. In the target configs, we have one target config uh, where the target is lightning flow screen, and when you specify the target called lightning flow screen, only then you'll able to see or use this configuration editor property. Otherwise it will throw an exception and it won't allow you to deploy the code. So the properties are very similar. We have the selected object and selected field, and I should have these same named public properties created into my JS file. I do have, and in the HTML file, I have nothing new. I'm just displaying those selected values. So if we notice the configuration editor, so it basically takes your LWC component name, whatever component you would like to display as a setting component for this particular requirement. You can specify your setting component name in this form. Now let's see, we should have this screen flow design attribute setting component created. We do have. So let's open the HTML file. So the UI that you saw over here, where we have a selectable object, a selectable field, they are coming from a custom UI. So as you saw that we have a spinner, we have some div tags, we have two combo boxes where one is displaying all the Salesforce object and one is displaying all the selected fields from that particular object. Let's see what's in the JS. Before that, nothing in the meta file because it will work as a setting component for your main component. So it cannot have any kind of property in the meta file. So if we notice the JS file, we have two Apex callout. One is to get all the Salesforce object. Second one is to get all the all the fields from the selected object. We have some track properties, some spinner classes. As of now, please ignore this section. We'll be back on this. We have a wire service, which is retrieving all the Salesforce object and the field for the default selected object. We have a handle change event for the object change and field change, and we have a fire event. So basically, each and every property that you saw over here, if there is any change in both of them, you have to make sure that you uh, communicate with communicate with both of them using a custom event called configuration editor input value change. So if you want to communicate selected field with the property that you mentioned over here, you have to fire an event with the name configuration editor input value change, and it takes a detail object which contains name. Name should be equal to your property name for whatever property you are passing the data. You can specify that particular property name. The new value is the new value of your property, and here is the data type of your property. So it can be anything. Like if you are returning the integer, you can specify integer. If you are returning boolean, you can specify boolean. So when you work in flow screens, you have to return or you have to fire this event only, otherwise you won't be able to establish a connection between both of them. So the moment I am switching my component and coming back to this or changing anything, that event is fired every time. So that means we are establishing a connection using this custom event called configuration editor input value changed. Now let's talk about what we left in the from the top as input variables. So the moment I am switching my component, it establishing a connection using like it's a two-way connection. From here, if we would like to pass the data to our main component, we have to fire this event, and from the top component, if we would like to pass the data to our setting component, we have to use this getSet property, or it could be either a public property. So in the input variable, we have a variables, and the way of using our custom values or the properties from this variable is this: we have to find our property using a find method, or you can use any JS methods to get the selected object or any property that you have. In my case, I have selected object and selected field. So what I'm doing, I am finding that particular property and assigning it to a local variable so that I can make the selection on my UI that, hey, this is the default value I have selected. So the moment I'm switching the components, the input variables are being called and they are setting the default values for the select object that I returned or fired while changing them from here. So this is how a screen flow design attribute works. You can have your custom UI. So in this component, you have all the UI controls. You can have your custom UI. You can have your validations. You can specify anything here. Now let's talk about how we can utilize the same feature while being on the community. So here I am on my community builder, and let's drop another component that I created for the community, which is community design attribute. So let's drop it over here.
Piyush, one question here.
Mhm.
On that screen flow component where you have a custom LWC for showing UI, is that supported beyond screen flows also, like in normal app
No,
builders? Okay,
no.
that's actually a very good feature to have a
It,
complex.
yes. All right. So the moment I drop my community design attribute component on the UI, you can see on the standard settings section, I have some settings where I have a number one, let's put any number. I have number two, let's put any number. So the moment I type the value, it's showing me an addition. Let's switch the focus. So when I'm back on my community design attribute, one thing you would notice that my number one is lost, my number two is also lost, but I'm only able to retain my additions. So this is a limitation when we talk about a community type design attributes uh, or the custom property editor when using into the community. And it also doing a calculation that is not possible in the standard design attribute. So let's see how we are achieving this using code. So for the community, I have created a main component named community design attribute and a setting component with the name community design attribute setting. So in the JS file, sorry, in the HTML file, we are just displaying the addition. If I preview it, you can see my addition is being displayed. In the JS file, we have only one public property named addition. In the meta file, if we are willing to use the component on the community, we have to specify these two targets, Lightning Community Page and Lightning Community Default. We have a master label community design attribute and the similar target configs as previous. We have a new target for this is Lightning Community Default. So the moment you specify the target called Lightning Community Default, you'll have access to the property called editor. where you can specify your LWC components name. So other things are similar. I am returning the integer, or I'm using it for the integer purpose. The name is addition, means I should have a public property with the name addition. And the editor is taking the LWC component's name in this form, c slash your LWC component name as a setting component. So let's see what's in the setting component. As you already saw that we had a number one, we had a number two input, and we had a read only field called addition. Let's see what's in the JS. Uh, Again, please ignore this value. We have nothing new. We are just having a track variable, number one and number two. We have a number one change event, number two change event. And the way of firing an event in the flow, we saw that we have to return, or we have to fire the custom, what, what was that? We have to fire this particular custom configuration editor input value change event. But when we are on the community, we have to fire value change event. And the detail and the data section is very similar to the previous one. We have to specify detail.value and whatever value you would like to return. And the way ScreenFlow was using the values from the top is input variable, and community type design attribute or community type custom property editor uses this value uh, get set property to set the default values, or to communicate from top to bottom, or to main to your setting component. And this is the value get set property which will help you to set your default values for this particular component. As you already saw that we are only able to retain our additions, so that was because of this particular editor section, because it is only applicable. If you have another property, you have to use another LWC component for that particular property. Otherwise, you won't be able to return multiple things using a community type custom property editor. Even though it's a limitation, but we can have multiple option to get rid of this, or cope up with this. So let's review another component that has all the features that can be even drop on the community and flow, and it can fire multiple things at a time, and it can be similar to both the places like flow screen and community. I have another component called data viewer. Let's drop it on the UI. So the moment I drop the component on the UI, you can see I have a select parent object combo box, which will allow me to select all the Salesforce objects. So let's select account. Please ignore the label. It's basically for the field set of the account. So the moment I selected my account, it popped up the select field, select picklist field, select text area field from the account object only, even though I don't have any field set for the account object. But I do have some picklist fields for the account object. I can select any one of them. I have text area fields on the account as well. Let's see if it is refreshing the selection when we change the object. So it's doing that. The moment I change the object, you can see all fields are being refreshed. I don't have any field set on the case as well, but I do have picklist fields and text area fields. So we are on the community, and if I switch the focus, where my component is? Okay, if I switch the focus, you can see my previous selection are being retained. Even though community supports only one property at a time, but still I'm able to retain three of them. So we'll see how we are doing that. But before that, I would like to give you another way of using the same thing into the flow screen. So the same component is available on the flow as well. So the moment I drop the component, you can see it came up with all the selectable object. It has the field set, pick list, and the text area field. I also can change the object to anything. The values are being refreshed. I can select the tick list fields and text area field. I don't have. And even I am retaining the values while being on the flow. You can see we had selected the parent object and the type pick list. Now let's see how we are achieving this, because it's working on both community and our flow screen. We have a component called data viewer and another component called data viewer setting. So let's open the HTML file of our data viewer. So we have nothing. We can use those data for our business needs. In the JS file, we have nothing. We are just communicating the data using a setting variable or a setting public property, which is itself an object. And we are just passing the values using stringifying them. Um, sorry. In the meta file, we have nothing new, the similar target. Now we have to use this component on both screens. So I have specified lightning flow screen, community page and community default. Target configs have two target config. One is for flow screen. So as you already know that flow screen supports multiple properties. So it can have multiple properties specified over here, but that can also be communicated using a object. And in the configuration editor, we have to specify an LWC setting component. And the way of using the component on community, we have to specify the editor property that should take another LWC component name. So if you notice, the configuration editor's component name and the editor's property component name, they both are similar: data viewer setting component and data viewer settings. So let's open the setting component. In the HTML file, we have this UI. One is like 4 combo boxes, which is working or which is dependent on each and other's selections. So we have first combo box for all the Salesforce object, second combo box for the field set, third combo box for the picklist fields, and fourth combo box for the text area field. Let's see what's in the setting component. Now you can see that if we are on the flow screen, we can communicate top to bottom using input variables. And if we are on community, we can communicate top to bottom using this value get set property. And the second thing, how we can fire the event. So whenever there is a change detected for each one of the sharing properties, you have to fire the event. So when you are on community, you can return or you can fire the event called value change. And when you are on the flow, you can fire configuration editor input value change event. In the like setting name, we are using a object called settings, which contains what parent you have selected, what parent pick list you have selected, what parent fields you have selected, and other properties. And what we are doing whenever we are switching the component, we are querying all the objects. We are also making sure that if user has any previous selection, other things are similar. We have to uh, apex call out. One is to get all the Salesforce object, and one is to get all the schemas like fields, field set, pick list type field, and text area fields. Here we have a make call, which is fetching all the details like objects, other schema details. On each and every section or each and every change in here, we have to fire an event. So I'm firing setting change event every time when there is a change detected for my public property. So I have to access this dot settings dot whatever property name I have, and this setting component or this setting public property can be used in this data viewer component for the business requirements. Like let's say if you are willing to return multiple things together, you won't have to specify multiple properties here. You can just use uh, an object, and that object can be returned to establish the communication between two components. We have some change event as well, and each one change will be firing the setting event. The custom event called configuration editor or the value change. So this is how you can use custom property editor for your business needs, and you can get most out of it. I think that's all that I had.
Thank you, Piyush. So, if we try to recap, so and please add where I'm missing. So, I think there are very plain design attributes, which are string, number, boolean, which are available in the config file itself, the meta file.
Hmm.
Then we saw a demo of an Apex-based configurator where you can use Apex to pass values.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can use this Apex colon double slash kind of protocol to specify a controller. The design pattern or whatever, I don't know, but the limitation here is you have to create a new Apex class for each property. There's
Correct.
probably no clean way yet to reuse some Apex code, but I think it's good also. You will have some simple Apex classes for simple use. And I think the catch here is you cannot depend these Apex classes on each other, right? You cannot know
Correct.
what's happening in another property. Okay. And then we saw something related to
Flow.
flow. So we had a flow thing, but the beauty here is that the flow allows a custom component, a custom LWC to be a property screen, which looks very nice and gives more control. So that's where is this line number 10 talking to. Like there is a screen flow design attribute setting component, which we established here as a linkage. And I'm sorry. So this is the whole custom UI for that. And that works well with the screen flow. You can use some events like custom events to do communication here between the configurator and the component so that it knows something changed. And then we had something for communities.
Yep.
And there was some limitation here. You were mentioning what was that with community one?
Each property supports one editor. That's
Mm-hmm.
the limitation. So if you notice this flow screen design attribute, it has two properties called select object, select field. So if I would like to have the same kind of configuration using editor, I would have to specify an another LWC component for returning me the selected object and another LWC component for the selected field.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the
Hmm.
limitation. It supports only one editor per property,
Okay. And then in the end, we went towards one
one
data
common
viewer.
component. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe this is little heavy. Can you summarize that? What was it for?
It can have like if you are willing to create one common component for your flow screen and community, you can use both of them. Since the limitation of community, it supports only one editor at a time, so you cannot have multiple properties for your flow screen and one property for your community. You have to like you should have a common information sharing, which is an object, so you can have a particular object that can contains all the selections that user is doing while being on the flow or community uh, design time.
Perfect, perfect. And anything else which we would like to add in the summary?
I think one more thing here is if you are willing to add a LWC component on the community as a setting component, you have to make sure that on the meta file, you should specify this property editor target.
Hmm.
So it allows your component to be able to like extend into your main component and use it as a setting component, and it supports in the editor only. Like if you are willing to specify any LWC component, you have to make sure that LWC component should be uh, set as a target to Lightning property editor. And similar for the data viewer setting, I have the same target called Lightning property editor. So using this way, you can tell the component that you can be used as a property editor for your main LWC component.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. And again, any last summary or any notes which you would like to pass?
I think it depends on the business needs. Whatever business need you have, you can use according to that. Even though we don't have any direct feature into the LWC component to uh, use these kind of property editors, but hopefully we'll get something in the future for sure. I think
Perfect.
that's all.
All right. So, with that being said, thank you, Piyush, for the presentation and research. And for the audience here, we are happy to take questions. But again, as it's not a live session, so drop your comments in the video or social channel. We'll pass it to Piyush and team and we'll get back to you. Thanks again for watching.